Venus, Earth's twin sister, right? Well, not exactly. More like our evil twin. Today, we know Venus is a scorching hellscape, but back in the early days of the space race, nobody was sure what was hiding under its thick, mysterious clouds. Some scientists imagined a lush, tropical paradise, a humid jungle teeming with life. But one young astronomer, a guy you might have heard of named Carl Sagan, predicted something far more sinister, a runaway greenhouse effect creating a surface hot enough to melt lead. It was a terrifying idea, but one that would turn out to be chillingly accurate. As the 1960s roared on, America set its sights on the Moon and Mars, but the Soviet Union became singularly obsessed with Venus. For them, it wasn't just a scientific target. It was a cosmic battleground, the next great prize in the Cold War. They launched an ambitious, relentless, and frankly, brutal campaign to conquer this alien world. This was the Venera Program, a series of missions that would redefine the limits of engineering and our understanding of the solar system. The Soviets poured immense resources into Venera, driven by a nationalistic fervor to be the first. And their early attempts were, well, disastrous. Probe after probe failed. Some exploded on the launch pad. Others went silent in deep space. The ones that actually made it to Venus were unceremoniously crushed by an atmosphere far thicker and more powerful than anyone had anticipated. But the Soviets were nothing if not persistent. They treated each failure not as a defeat, but as a lesson. With every crushed probe, they learned more about the insane pressures they were dealing with. Finally, in 1966, a breakthrough. Venera 3, after a long journey, slammed into the Venusian surface. It was more of a crash than a landing, and its communications failed before it could send back any data from the ground. But it still made history. It was the very first time a human-made object had ever touched the surface of another planet. It was a symbolic victory, a powerful statement that the Soviets had arrived. While NASA was busy with its Mariner flybys, the USSR was physically on another world. This small, silent impact marked a huge milestone, proving that reaching the surface was possible. But getting there was one thing. Surviving was another challenge entirely. To understand why this was so hard, you have to appreciate just how unbelievably hostile Venus is. The temperature on the surface is a staggering 900 degrees Fahrenheit, or 475 Celsius. That's twice as hot as your home oven on its highest setting, hot enough to melt not just lead, but zinc and tin too. It's the kind of heat you'd find inside a roaring, wood-fired pizza oven. Any spacecraft trying to land there would essentially be cooked from the inside out the moment it arrived. And the heat was only half the problem. The real killer was the pressure. The atmosphere of Venus is over 90 times denser than Earth's. Stepping onto its surface would feel like being crushed under a kilometer of ocean water. Imagine the deepest, darkest part of the sea, then put that pressure on a hot plate. That's Venus. Early Soviet engineers designed their first landers like submarines, built to withstand immense external force. But even those were flattened like soda cans. And as if that wasn't enough, it rains. But not water. On Venus, it rains sulfuric acid. The clouds are made of the same corrosive chemical you'd find in a car battery. This acid rain would eat away at anything it touched, dissolving metal and frying electronics. So the Soviet engineers faced an impossible task. Build a spacecraft that could survive a fiery descent, withstand crushing pressure, resist being dissolved by acid, and still have enough power to send back data from a world that actively tried to destroy it. After the symbolic impact of Venera 3, the Soviets went back to the drawing board. They needed to achieve a soft landing and return data from the surface. In 1970, they did it. Venera 7, built like a tank and cooled by an internal system, plunged through the clouds. It survived the descent and, for 23 precious minutes, transmitted temperature readings directly from the surface, confirming Carl Sagan's hellish prediction. The data was undeniable. Venus was an inferno. It was the first time any spacecraft had successfully landed on another planet and sent back information. The world now knew the truth about our sister planet. But the Soviets wanted more than just numbers. They wanted to see it. 5 years later, in 1975, Venera 9 made its descent. This probe was even more robust, and it carried a very special piece of equipment, a camera. After a harrowing landing, it activated its lens cap, which was designed to pop off using a small explosive charge, and it worked. For the first time in history, humanity laid its eyes on the surface of another planet. The image it sent back was grainy, black and white, and distorted by the fisheye lens, but it was revolutionary. It showed a desolate landscape of sharp, jagged rocks, unlike anything on Earth or the Moon. It was an alien world revealed. This kicked off a golden age of Venusian exploration for the Soviets. They kept refining their designs, making each lander tougher and more capable than the last. Then came 1981, and the mission that would become the crowning achievement of the entire program. Venera 13. This probe was a masterpiece of Soviet engineering. Not only did it survive for a record-breaking 127 minutes on the surface, but it carried a suite of advanced scientific instruments. It drilled into the Venusian soil, analyzing its composition. And most famously, it took the first-ever color photographs of the surface. Those pictures are haunting. They show a yellow-orange sky pressing down on a landscape of flat, volcanic rock plates and dark soil. For the first time, we could see Venus in its true, eerie colors, but Venera 13 gave us one more incredible gift. It carried a microphone, and as the lander sat there, slowly cooking in the oppressive heat, it recorded the sounds of Venus. What did it hear? The faint rumble of distant thunder, the whistle of the thick wind blowing past the lander, and the mechanical clunks of its own camera and drill. For a brief moment, we could not only see another world, but we could hear it too. It was a profound, almost surreal experience, bridging the vast emptiness of space with sound. So after all these incredible achievements, why haven't we been back to the surface? Why did we stop? The simple answer is that it's incredibly difficult and expensive for a very short payoff. Even the mighty Venera 13 only lasted about 2 hours before its systems failed and it fell silent forever. The extreme heat and pressure just bake the electronics until they melt. Compare that to NASA's Mars rovers, which can operate for years, covering miles of terrain and conducting long-term experiments. The scientific return on investment for a Venus lander is just low. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, the political will and the massive budget required for these high-risk missions evaporated. The focus of space exploration shifted towards longer, more sustainable missions. The surface of Venus, once the obsession of a superpower, fell quiet again. Today, it remains one of the most mysterious and unexplored surfaces in our solar system, holding its secrets under a blanket of acid clouds and crushing heat, waiting for us to one day be bold enough to return. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey to our solar system's most brutal world, make sure to like and subscribe for more space stories.